Alice Mirrors Part 1, Shattered Beginnings, Chapter 1, The Attic Mirror. The attic smelled like forgotten summers and old books. Dust clung to the beams like sleeping bats, and the sunlight, slipping through the cracked window, fell in long, slanted rivers of gold. Alice ducked under a cobweb and stepped onto the creaking floorboards, the sound of her boots sharp against the hush. She wasn't supposed to be here. Grandmother's attic was off limits, tucked behind a door that moaned when it opened and sighed when it closed. As if even the house knew some secrets were better left undisturbed. But curiosity, that age-old troublemaker, had pulled her up the narrow staircase, whispering, "Just one look. Just one." Alice pulled her jacket tighter around herself. The air up here was colder, like the attic lived in a different season from the rest of the house. Forgotten trunks and dusty furniture crouched in the corners, draped with moth-eaten sheets. Everything seemed to be waiting, and then she saw it. Standing in the farthest corner, half hidden behind a stack of empty bird cages, was a mirror. Not just any mirror, the mirror. It was tall, nearly as tall as Grandmother's grandfather clock downstairs. Its wooden frame curled into roses and thorns, frozen in dark, twisting vines. But it wasn't the frame that stopped Alice's breath. It was the crack. A long, delicate fracture split the mirror from top to bottom, like a spider's web had been stitched in silver thread across the glass. And where it broke, the light did strange things, bending and blooming into colors Alice had never seen before, colors that didn't have names. For a moment, she simply stared. She had seen mirrors all her life, of course, but none that looked back at her quite like this one. Not judged, not copied, looked. Have you ever felt someone watching you when you know you are completely alone? That was how it felt. Only this time it wasn't someone watching. It was something. Alice inched closer. Her heart thudded once, twice, like fists knocking against a door she wasn't sure she wanted to open. She glanced at her reflection. It was her, but not her. This Alice was standing a little too still. Her eyes were a little too bright, the edges of her smile just a little too sharp. And the crack. It ran straight through her face, splitting her reflection into two almost matching halves. Alice reached out. Her fingers hovered just an inch from the glass. She knew better. Good girls did not touch strange things in forbidden places. But Alice had never been particularly good, and besides, the mirror was humming a song she almost remembered, from a dream she almost knew. Her fingertip brushed the glass, and the mirror sighed. A breath, deep and sorrowful, rippled out from the crack. The air turned electric, raising the hairs along her arms. Before Alice could snatch her hand away, the mirror's surface melted, softening like warm wax, and a ripple raced outward from where she had touched it. In the blink of an eye, the world folded in half. The attic disappeared. No. It shattered like a dropped plate, splintering into 1,000 shards of color and light. Alice gasped and stumbled back, but there was no floor beneath her anymore. Just silver mist and the feeling of falling upward. 1,000 versions of herself floated in the mist, laughing, crying, shouting, silent. Some were older, some younger. Some wore crowns, some wore chains. All of them were Alice, and none of them were. The cracked mirror spun in the mist, its broken heart wide open now. And somewhere behind all the falling reflections, a voice whispered, "Come find yourself, little broken thing." Alice tried to scream, but the sound tangled in her throat. She was falling into the mirror, or maybe the mirror was falling into her. It was hard to tell. And then, darkness. A soft, heavy darkness that smelled of lilies and rain. When she opened her eyes, she was standing in a vast hall. The walls stretched up so high they disappeared into stars. And everywhere, there were mirrors. Mirrors of every size and shape. Tall and thin, round and rippling, black as oil, clear as tears. Some stood on clawed feet. Some floated like bubbles. Some had frames of bone or branches or silver smoke. Each mirror showed something different. Each mirror showed someone different. Alice swallowed hard. Her own heartbeat sounded too loud in this empty, echoing place. The cracked mirror, the one from the attic, stood directly behind her, humming like a living thing, but it wasn't cracked anymore. The split had healed itself, and now the surface was smooth and unbroken. Or was it? If you looked closely, very closely, you could still see the faintest scar running through it, a ghost of the crack, a reminder. Alice turned in a slow circle, heart hammering against her ribs. Where was she? What had she done? More importantly, how was she going to get back? A soft tap, tap, tap broke the silence. Alice spun toward the sound. One of the mirrors, a round one set in a frame of curling ivy, was shivering. Its surface rippled like a pond disturbed by a single stone. From the other side, something was trying to get through. Alice took a step forward, her boots whispering against the marble floor. Another step. Closer now. Close enough to see. And then, with a sudden crack like thunder, a hand burst through the mirror. It was a hand made of glass, sharp and glistening, reaching for her with long, glittering fingers. Alice staggered back. The mirror whispered her name. Not the name she wore every day, polite and trimmed. No, the true name. The one she had almost forgotten. Alice, to be continued. Chapter 2. A touch too far. The glass hand quivered in the air, reaching, longing. And Alice did the only thing she could think to do. She reached back. Her fingertips brushed the mirror flesh, cool as the underside of a stone after rain. The moment they touched, the world broke. It wasn't a loud shattering, not at first. It was a soft sound, almost tender, like the first hairline crack along an ice sheet in spring. A fracture. Delicate and slow, spiderwebbing outward from the point where Alice's skin met glass. The floor beneath her rippled. The marble became a mirror. The air became a mirror. The very space inside her chest, where breath should have been, reflected itself back at her, endless and echoing, and then everything shattered at once. It was not a fall. It was an unfolding. Like the pages of a book she hadn't known she was trapped inside. Fluttering open all at once, revealing 1,000 chapters she had never lived. 1,000 stories she had almost been. The stars above her blinked out, replaced by jagged shards of sky tumbling end over end. The marble floor cracked and dropped away in chunks, each piece spinning into glittering dust. The mirrors surrounding her bent and twisted, the images inside writhing like trapped fish, gasping, breaking, spilling dreams and nightmares alike. Alice stumbled backward, or forward, or sideways. It was impossible to tell now. The ground was a river of glass, and she was sinking. She tried to breathe, but every breath drew in a reflection. 1,000 different Alices gasped with her, their faces flickering across the breaking mirrors. Some shouting in anger, some laughing in triumph, some sobbing with terror. All of them wore her face. None of them wore her heart. This isn't real, she thought, clutching her arms around herself. But it felt real. It felt like the most real thing that had ever happened to her. The air thickened, syrupy and silver, and every beat of her heart sent a visible ripple through the shattered world. The cracked mirror behind her groaned, and something stepped through. Alice spun, slipping on the shifting glass beneath her boots. At first she thought it was another girl, a mirror twin. But no, this creature was wrong. Its smile was too wide, its eyes too deep. It shimmered with beauty, terrible and brittle, like a stained glass angel left out in a storm. "Come back," it whispered. "Come back where you belong." The voice curled around Alice like smoke, sweet, familiar, almost safe, almost. "I don't belong to you," Alice said, surprised at how steady her voice sounded in this upside-down place. The creature's smile cracked at the edges. It extended one glassy hand toward her again. "You are already breaking," it said. "Come home before you lose yourself completely." Alice took a step back, but there was nowhere to go. The mirrors behind her, all the mirrors, were beginning to fracture outward, peeling back like the petals of a dying flower. Beyond them was nothing, a void of stars and darkness and echoes, waiting to swallow her whole. "Choice," a voice whispered inside her. "You always have a choice." Alice squared her shoulders. She had not come this far just to become another shadow trapped behind the glass. With shaking fingers, she reached into her pocket and found the thing she always kept there, even now. A small, chipped key. Old, tarnished, forgotten. A key without a lock. Until now. The creature frowned, its beautiful face splitting slightly along invisible cracks. "You cannot open what was never meant to open," it hissed. Alice didn't answer. She simply raised the key and pressed it against her heart. A soft sound, like a bell struck underwater, rippled through her. The mirrors shrieked. The creature staggered back, hands pressed to its face as cracks spiderwebbed across its skin. And the world folded again. But this time Alice held steady. She was not a leaf tossed on a current anymore. She was the current. The fracture lines ran through her, yes, but they did not define her. They were simply where the light got in. The shattered mirrors froze in midair. The spinning ground steadied beneath her feet, coalescing into something new. A path made of broken shards, each one reflecting a different version of her face. Laughing, crying, angry, hopeful, leading off into the misty distance. A path of all the selves she could have been. And somewhere, far down that path, something shimmered. Like a lighthouse calling a ship through a storm. The true Alice. Not the shadow, not the reflection. The girl she had always been trying to become, without even knowing it. Alice tucked the old key back into her pocket. The creature from the mirror was still crumpled on the ground, whispering broken promises to the cracks. Alice didn't look back. Instead, she set her shoulders, took a deep breath that tasted like rain and starlight, and stepped forward, onto the path of mirrors. Each step sang, each step hurt, but each step was hers alone to take. Chapter 3. Splintered Reflections. The path of broken mirrors stretched before her, glittering like a river of stars spilled across a black sea. Each step Alice took made the shards sing beneath her boots. Not a melody, but a strange whispering music that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. She walked carefully, feeling the slight give of the mirror path underfoot, as if it were breathing. The mist thickened ahead, swirling in slow, heavy tendrils, hiding whatever lay beyond. But when Alice reached the next bend, the mist parted, and she stopped cold. There, waiting in the open clearing, were Alice's. Dozens. Hundreds, maybe. They stood in clusters like wildflowers, some close enough to touch, others fading into the silver fog. And every single one of them was a version of herself. Alice stared, heart hammering against her ribs. One Alice wore a golden crown, heavy and crooked atop tangled hair. She looked tired, regal but brittle. Another wore rags stitched together with threads of fire. Her eyes were wild, burning with a fierce, desperate light. A third sat cross-legged on the ground, humming softly to herself, her dress covered in ivy and moss. And another still, tall and sharp-eyed, held a dagger made of glass, her smile thin and dangerous. Some of the Alices were children, clutching stuffed animals or dragging worn blankets behind them. Some were ancient, with hair like spider silk and wrinkles that mapped whole lives across their faces. And a few were wrong, their smiles too wide, their shadows moving before their bodies did, their eyes reflecting something that didn't belong in any human heart. Alice swallowed, her throat dry. She had known, somewhere deep inside, that the mirror would show her other selves, but she hadn't expected it to feel so raw, so personal. It was like walking into a room full of all the girls she had ever tried to be, all the girls she had refused to become, and all the girls she had abandoned without even realizing it. One of them, a girl her own age, wearing a jacket just like hers but in a deep, bruised violet, stepped forward. Her eyes were kind, her hands were steady. "You found us," Violet Jacket Alice said, her voice a softer echo of Alice's own. "Or maybe we found you." Alice opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. The others began to move now, drifting closer, forming a loose circle around her. Their faces were so familiar, and yet every one of them held stories she didn't know, victories she had never claimed, mistakes she had never made, dreams she had forgotten. One Alice, a small one no more than 6 years old, tugged at her hand. "Are you the one who ran away?" the little girl asked, her voice high and unsure. "No," said the one with the dagger, stepping forward, her boots slicing through the mist. "She's the one who stayed." "No," said the one crowned in gold, sadness lacing her voice. "She's the one who broke." "No," said the one with ivy in her hair, offering a tiny smile. "She's the one who grew." The voices overlapped, tangled, caught in the air like moths around a flame. Alice squeezed her eyes shut, trying to make the world go still. It didn't. If anything, the reflections grew sharper, clearer, as if refusing to be ignored. You might wonder, if you were standing where Alice stood, how it feels to see every version of yourself at once. It isn't pride. It isn't shame. It's something heavier, something stranger. Like carrying all your unfinished stories on your back and realizing none of them, not a single one, will ever leave you. Alice opened her eyes. She lifted her chin. "I don't know which one of you I'm supposed to be," she said aloud, her voice cracking slightly. The circle rippled, as if she had dropped a stone into a silver lake. The crowned Alice stepped forward, her heavy crown tilting to one side. "You are not supposed to be anyone but yourself," she said, "but you must choose which parts to carry forward." The dagger Alice snorted. and which parts to leave behind. And which parts to forgive, whispered the little girl, still clinging to Alice's hand. Alice looked down at her, so small, so fragile, and her heart ached. She remembered being that girl, wanting too much, fearing too much, dreaming too much, and being told over and over that it was better to be smaller, quieter, easier to love. She bent down and scooped the little girl into her arms. The child felt feather light, as if made of memories and moonlight. "I'm sorry I left you," Alice whispered into the girl's hair. The child said nothing. She only wrapped her arms tighter around Alice's neck, holding on with a fierceness that made Alice's eyes sting. When she stood again, the other Alices smiled. Not all of them, not the shadowed ones, but enough. A path unfurled ahead, a new one, paved with mirrors that shimmered softly, no longer sharp and broken, but whole enough to walk upon. Alice shifted the little girl onto her hip and took her first step forward. The other Alices began to fade, one by one, their reflections merging back into the mist. But she knew, she could feel, they weren't gone. They were part of her now. All the frightened girls, all the fierce girls, all the girls who had laughed and fought and fallen and gotten back up again. She carried them with her. And maybe, just maybe, they carried her too.